Hey everyone. So in this video, we are going to address one of the most common and important topic, which is top of mind for every customer, that is governance controls and how to configure these governance control in Copilot Studio. So before we look at the actual configuration, I wanted to quickly share this slide to level set our understanding of governance control and how they work in Copilot Studio. So if you look at the slide, essentially we have two sets of controls. We have controls for your agents and we have controls for makers or users who are creating these agents. And these controls can be applied at tenant level, environment level, or individual agent level. So um, these are different controls that are available today. And one of the big change that we announced last month is now, by default, we are going to apply DLP policies to your agent. So we are enforcing DLP policies to align with our secure by design principle. Previously, you had to run some PowerShell scripts to enable it for your agents. But as of last month, you don't need to do that. You can still use the PowerShell scripts if you want to create an exception. So if you want to exclude a certain agent from DLP policies, you can still make use of the PowerShell scripts. But just know that if you see anything not working within your agent, or if you see a notification pop up, it might be due to enforcement of DLP policies on your agents. Okay, so having said that, let's first look at controls that we can apply on the maker side or the users who are going to create agents. So there are different controls available to control the access and also control the sharing of agents when users are creating these agents. So we'll first look at what licenses are needed and how to assign licenses to users in order to get started with agent creation on Copilot Studio. So in order to assign license to a user, we need to log into M365 Admin Center. So once you're logged in, you can go to licenses under billing, and you should see a license for Copilot Studio here. So if you already have bought the message packs, then you should have a $0 SKU license that shows up here. So all you have to do is click on that license. In my case, I have a trial license, but you should have a license that says Copilot Studio. You click on it and then just simply click Assign License and then select the user that you would want to have access to Copilot Studio. So just select the user and then assign that license. So once you do that, the user would have access to create agents on Copilot Studio. The next thing that you also want to ensure is the users are configured correctly on Power Platform Admin Center. So if you go back to Power Platform Admin Center and look at the environment level settings. So let's say we want to create agents in this environment. You want to make sure the user that we just assigned license to has access to the right environment. And you can do that by going to Power Platform Admin Center, look at the environment where you're going to create the agent, and then click on users. And over here, make sure the user has access to the environment. If they don't show up here, you can click on add user and then look for their email so that you can add them to the right environment. So that way they would be in the right environment and they'll have access to start building within this environment. The other important setting for makers is also around the security roles. So once you have assigned the user to a specific environment, you also want to make sure they have the right security role. This is important because if you assign system customizer or sysadmin role to the user, just keep in mind that they will have access to all the metadata tables that Copilot Studio creates in DataWorks, which includes chat transcripts. So if you want to prevent your users or makers from looking at some of the chat transcript, you need to make sure you are assigning them a different role other than sysadmin or system customizer role. That way, they won't have access to those tables, even though they would be able to create the agents within this environment. Okay, so now that we have looked at all the controls for makers, let's talk about how we can manage governance controls for your agent itself. We'll start by looking at controls at tenant level. So now if you go back to Power Platform Admin Center, the first thing you want to check is go to settings and make sure if you look for Copilot, you should see two important settings here. So the first one is for making sure you're assigning right security group to allow creation of agents. So in this case, you can see I can click on Copilot Studio author setting, and I can choose which security group within your Entra tenant will be allowed to create agents at the tenant level. So here you can select a group that will be allowed to build agents on this tenant. So this is a tenant level configuration. So you can control who has access at the tenant level to create agents. The other important configuration here is ability to control publishing of agents with AI features. So if you click on this, you can disable this setting if you want to prevent users from creating agents that have Gen AI features. Again, just keep in mind that this is a tenant level setting. So if you turn this off, they would not be able to publish any agent that has Gen AI capability. So this should only be used when you want to disable Gen AI capability completely on your Copilot Studio tenant. So these are two of the main tenant level settings. And now we'll look at environment level settings. So for environment level settings, you can click on environments. Let's assume that we are creating agents in this specific environment. So I can click on this. And the first thing I want to make sure is in this environment, if I want my agents to search across web or search across a specific website, I want to make sure this Gen AI features here is configured correctly. So we want to click on this edit button and then make sure the Bing search is allowed. If we don't allow this Bing search, then your bot would not be able to use any web data as a knowledge source. So just make sure that you are turning this on in order to allow your agent to search across the web. The other setting that you want to check at the environment level, and this is only applicable for customers that have managed environments. So if you have a managed environments, you can click on these three dots and then click on Edit Manage Environments. And here you can control how your agents are being shared. So you have control to limit sharing of agents within this specific environment. So if you want your makers to not share with anyone, then you can just uncheck this button here and they won't be able to share agents with other users. They can only build those agents, but they won't be able to share. If you want to allow them sharing rights, you can use this second granular control, which is going to allow your makers to share with others, but they can only share with people who are able to view the agents, but they are not able to edit the agents. So here, if you see, this gives them viewer rights and not editing rights to the agent that is being shared. So this is another granular control we have that prevents users from oversharing agents as they're building them. Okay, so those are some of the key environment level settings or controls that we have in place that will restrict how Gen AI capabilities are being used and also how agents are being shared within your organization. Now, we are going to also look at the third level, which is your individual agent level or individual maker level settings. And these are controlled by using DLP policies. So if I come here and I click on data policies, I can create data policy that can be applied at tenant level or at specific environment level. So here I can create a new policy. I'm just going to call this test policy for now, and then click on next. So if you have already used Power Platform, you must be familiar with how these three buckets work. But essentially, we have three buckets which are used to group different connectors and custom connector, standard connectors, premium connectors, and custom connectors. You want to make sure that all the connectors that are needed for your agent use case are in a single bucket. So for example, if you want to, let's say, use Office 365 DataWorks as your data source, and then I'm just going to select all the controls for Copilot. So I'm going to select this. Let's see, I'm going to select all these controls that I would be using for my agent. And I'll move them to business. So you can see now I have 11 connectors that are in business category. I can also go back and let's say I want to use SharePoint as my data source. So I'm going to move that. I'm going to need HTTP connector to make API calls. So I'm going to use my HTTP connector. Let's use this one, and I'm going to move that to business. I'm going to use Office 365 DataWorks and Outlook connector and then move them to business. So let's say these are all the ones that I need. So what I've done is I've moved them to business category, and now my agent can use all of these connectors as needed. Just keep in mind that if I'm using an agent with any of these connectors, then I cannot use a connector that is in non-business category. So all connectors that are being used by your agent needs to be in a single bucket. You cannot go across buckets when you configure the DLP policies. The other thing you might want to do is you might want to block some of the connectors that are not allowed in your organization. Let's say, for example, you want to block Dropbox to prevent any file from going outside your organization. So what I can do is I can simply click here and then I can click on block, and it will move that connector to block category. So typically, if you want to block, let's say, Facebook, Twitter, those kind of connectors, you can simply click or select those connectors and then just click on these three dots and select block in order to move them to block category. So this is how you would configure your connectors. The easiest way to do this, especially if you're building agents in a brand new environment, is to just include all the connectors that you need in the business category. That way you have everything you need in one single business bucket. The same thing applies once you do all that. The same thing would apply to custom connectors. So if you click next, it will show you a list of custom connectors that you might already have in this tenant. You want to classify that as well. So if you just click these three dots and click on edit, and then select the right bucket. So in this case, if I want to use this custom connector, I can select business and then move that connector to business categories in order for my agent to use it. So once you do that, you can click on next. And here you can see the scope for this DLP policy. So here you have option to apply this DLP policy that you're creating to all environments, or you can target a specific environment. So here I can select a specific environment that I have. So here you can see, like, I can select multiple environments, and then on the next step, I would be able to select the environments where I want to apply this DLP policy. The same thing applies to this exclusion configuration, where I can select this and then on the next step, exclude the environment which I don't want to have this DLP policy. So for now, let's say I want to add multiple environments. I'll go with this option. I'll click next, and then I can choose the environments that I want to add, and then I can simply click on add to policy in order to add those two environments to this policy. I'll click next, and here you can see all the configuration just to make sure everything looks okay. And then if you're okay with all the configuration, you can simply click on create policy, and this policy will get created and applied based on the environments you have selected. So that's the DLP policy configuration for your Copilot Studio agents. Now let's look at some of the other governance controls that you have within Copilot Studio platform itself. So if you look at your agent here, so this is one of the agents that I have. There are different options that you can use to apply governance control. The first thing you can do is make sure you are going to settings and checking the Gen AI tab. If you want to prevent your agent from using generative AI capability, you can select the classic mode, and then also select the moderation level if you go with generative AI capabilities. So if you have selected either a knowledge source, or if you're using Gen AI capabilities, you can choose the moderation. So this moderation level is applied at the agent level. So it's going to basically check for any kind of profanity within user's utterance or the response coming back from the user. So you can choose that moderation level here. And this will be applied at the agent level. The next thing to check is the security configuration. So if I click on security, you can check for authentication. So make sure you have the right level of authentication here. And then also, if you want to use direct line APIs, so direct line APIs allow you to basically interact with your agents over direct line APIs instead of just deploying to a channel like Teams. You can control that configuration here. So if you enable web channel security. Every time your client is talking to your agent over direct line, it will require a secured access using token. So that's something that you can configure if you're using direct line APIs. The other key thing that I forgot to mention is the granular controls that you can apply within the DLP policy connectors that we have. So if you go back to the DLP policies, when I created the DLP policies, there are specific connectors available now for Copilot Studio agent. So here, if you just search for Copilot Studio, you can see we have different controls now available that you can include as part of your DLP policy. So let's just go one by one. So the first one here, Copilot Studio Preview, this connector is used when you want to trigger a specific agent using Power Automate Flow. So you can see here, if you want to block that, you can just block directly from here, or you can configure specific actions. So right now, because it's a preview connector, we only have one action, which is allowing Power Automate Flow to execute a certain agent. You can just simply turn that off. If you want to prevent your agent from using this specific action. So that's how you configure this specific control that allows triggering agents from Power Automate Flow. The next one is skills with Copilot Studio. So this is where you want to bring in your existing Azure bot in Copilot Studio. So you can bring in your existing Azure bot that you have created using Azure Bot Framework in Copilot Studio as a skill. But if you want to prevent that, you can also come here and block that so that your users or makers cannot bring any external bot into Copilot Studio. The other one, which is really important, is this one here. So this one allows you to enforce authentication on your agent. So this one, if you want, you can use this and configure this to basically allow your agents to work without any authentication. Or if you want, you can use this to enforce authentication at the agent level. The next one allows you to deploy your agents in Teams and M365 Copilot chat or Copilot experience. So you can, again, configure this by blocking this if you want to prevent users from deploying your agents to Teams or M365 Copilot experience. The next one is for direct line. So this is, again, the same principle here. If you want to prevent your agents from using direct lines, you can simply come here and block this connector. The other ones are for Facebook channel. If you want to prevent users from deploying to omni-channel, you can simply select all these and move them to block category so that your users would not be able to deploy them to any of these channels. The other key important ones are these knowledge source connectors. So here you can see if you want your agents to not use SharePoint or OneDrive as data source, you can move this connector to block category. You also have more granular control where you can specify exactly what site is allowed. So let's say you have a specific site that you want to allow within your organization for your agent to use as a knowledge source, you can provide the endpoint for that site here. And this and when you do that, it would only allow a specific SharePoint site to be used with your agent. So the other one we have is for public website. Again, the same principle here. So if you want to completely block your agents from using public websites, then you can simply move it to block, or you can configure it to just include a specific website like your company's website and then block everything else. So you have more granular control on how you configure these DLP policies. The same thing applies for documents. So this is where you can prevent users from directly uploading documents in Copilot Studio, which can be used as knowledge source. So if you want to prevent that, just move this connector to block category so that your users would not be allowed to upload any documents as knowledge source for your agent. And lastly, we have this application insights connector. So this is where Copilot Studio has ability to send telemetry data to your Azure Insights on your Azure tenant. If you want to prevent that, you can configure this connector here. You can move it to block category if you want to prevent Copilot Studio from sending any telemetry data to Azure App Insights. So these are some granular controls which are really important, and these are all applied at the environment level. So make sure if you have any requirements where you want to control which public websites or SharePoint sites are being used for your agents, you can do so by using these connectors within the DLP policy setup. And then the last thing I wanted to show you guys was how you can also create a custom filter list for your agent so that you can specify certain words that needs to be excluded when your users are searching for that information. So for example, if I look at my agent here, you can see, let me just show a quick demo. So for this specific agent, what I have done is I have this option just to show you a demo. So I can click on this, and what this will do is it will ask the user to type their question. And if I say account, anything related to account status, it basically knows that this agent is not allowed to search for this information. So here you can see it's able to analyze the utterance coming from the user, and is showing me a message saying that this account status query has been blocked for this specific agent. So this can be done based on user's role, or you can do this at the agent level. So for example, if you want to make sure your agent doesn't have capability to look at your customer's account status, or if you want to prevent any HR related topics, you can use this approach to prevent or filter certain words, both at the utterance level and also at the response level. So when user is asking question, it will check against a filtered list. And then when bot is responding with an answer, it will also validate that that information does not include any of the words that are maintained within the filtered list. So let me quickly show how this can be created. So here you can see what I've done is I have two topics. The first one here is the one where I maintain the table of all the words that need to be blocked for this agent. So here you can see I'm just setting a variable to a table, and then these are the different words that I have configured that needs to be blocked. So this can be an ongoing list where, based on your use case, you can add and create a list of words that needs to be excluded both from user's utterance and also from response. And what this will do is, once user has asked the question, it invokes this topic, and then it does a lookup. You can see here, it does a lookup um, to check if the user's question has any word that is within this filtered list. If the word is found in that filtered list, then we set the status for this variable to block, and then the bot will show this message here. If the word is not found within user's utterance or within bot's response, then we set that variable to allow, and then it would move forward as needed based on your use case. So this is a simple approach where you can apply more granular control to check if user is asking something that they should not have access to, or if you want to check the response coming from the bot. So this is a simple way of implementing a filtered list for your Copilot Studio agent. So with that, I will conclude this video. If you have any questions or if you need more help, feel free to reach out and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thanks for watching.